The Truth Can Get You Killed, a Paul Turner mystery. Author Mark Richard Zubro. Publisher St. Martin's Press, New York. Narrator Eric Aust. Chapter 9. Paul's younger son burbled in the car all the way home. "It was great, Dad. I was better at the video games than everybody, except Harold. You know, the one who's on my basketball team. He's 3 years older than me. So I didn't feel too bad losing to him. He took a header in his wheelchair." "That's terrible," Paul said. "No, Dad, it was funny. He's such a jerk and a show-off. He was trying to do a wheelie. Two of the adults saw what he was trying to do and tried to stop him, but they were too late. They should have been supervising more closely." "We're not helpless, Dad. I told you about the wheelchair races. We have. It's cool." Paul made appropriate parental warning noises about Jeff racing in his wheelchair. Jeff had been bugging Paul to let him join some of the outdoor races in the summer where wheelchairs were allowed. Paul suspected he was going to say yes eventually. He knew once he said yes, Jeff would probably begin lobbying for a modified racing wheelchair. Turner asked more about the sleepover, and Jeff talked excitedly on. Jeff had the birth defect, spina bifida, that meant that at birth his spinal cord and nerves protruded in a sac from his back, near the bottom of his spine. He was born with bladder and bowel dysfunction and paralysis of his legs, except for a brief scare a year before, when his shunt had to be unclogged. There had been no major health problems in recent years. Paul drove up to Mrs. Tolucci's house. He had called her before he left the bar. Rose Tolucci lived next door to the Turners. She had the ground floor of the house to herself. On the second floor lived Mrs. Tolucci's 2 daughters and several distant female cousins. At 92, Mrs. Tolucci ruled this brood, her main concern being to keep them out of her way and to stay independent. Numerous times, she confided in Paul that if they weren't family, she'd throw them all out. She did her own cooking, cleaning, and shopping, as she had for 74 years. To her daughter's horror, she took the bus, or subway, on her own throughout the city and even to suburbs to visit friends, relatives, attend shopping center openings, or anything else that struck her fancy. Paul loved Rose. She cared for Jeff after school whenever Paul or Brian couldn't be home, and often wound up giving the boys and their dad dinner. This was prearranged on a weekly basis. For several years after it started, she refused all efforts of payment. Being neighbors and having known Paul and his family since before he was born precluded even discussing such things. But one day, Mrs. Tolucci couldn't fix a broken porch. Paul had offered, and since then, he'd done all repairs, and had even made several major renovations on her own. A few weeks ago, she'd been diagnosed with cancer. She had refused treatments, which the doctor said would almost certainly be painful and debilitating, and at her age, it wouldn't prolong her life much anyway. She insisted that the quality of her remaining time was what was important, not prolonging her 92 years. The only significant change she'd permitted in her lifestyle was that she didn't organize the Christmas dinner for her family. She announced at Thanksgiving she was going to Bermuda for the holiday. She'd taken a week-long cruise that included a 3-day stay on the island. She'd returned 2 days ago with a magnificent tan. She claimed she pinched the butt of her steward just for the hell of it. Mrs. Tolucci answered the door and hurried them inside. She offered to give Paul dinner, but he told her he had to get back to work. "I heard Judge Meade died," she said. "Buck and I have a case. I almost wish I'd read more law when I went back to school. Never saw much point in it. Didn't want to argue with a bunch of morons. I did read a few of his decisions." "You did?" "He was against everything I was for. I tried to keep up. I found the reasoning in what he wrote good, if you accepted his basic premises. I heard he was stupid. Could have been. It usually says who writes the decisions. Maybe his clerks wrote them for him. Or something. Seemed about average bright to me." After her husband had died, over 20 years ago, Rose had started back to school. She graduated magna cum laude from 3 different universities, accumulating 1 bachelor's and 2 master's degrees. She was proudest of her degree in philosophy from the University of Chicago. Paul stopped at his own house to call Ben, who had already planned to stay the night at Paul's. Ben offered to pick up Jeff later from Mrs. Tolucci's. Paul appreciated the offer. Chapter 10. When Turner got back to Au Naturel, only 5 employees had shown up. But Sickles had managed to get hold of over 90% of them. A steady stream of some of the most attractive men in town began trickling into the bar. Before they got started, Fenwick took Turner on a brief tour of the premises. "I know you're familiar with this place," Fenwick said. "I checked around and back. I found nothing suspicious. I think the back doorway should be gone over carefully. There is no blood anywhere on the pavement out back. Not sure how you'd clean it without the cleanser itself freezing. Unless you had a personal blowtorch you happen to bring along with your gun when you're doing murders. Could be all the rage with killers. You ever been through this whole place?" "I've been waiting for your guided tour." The dancer's dressing room looked like a high school locker room for the overly butch. Skimpy, slinky, filthy, sweaty, smelly. Clothes were strewn on most every surface. The lighting ran to the more lurid shades of pink and purple. There were a series of small offices behind Dennis Sickles. No windows were large enough to shove a body through. Nothing leapt out at them and said, "Hi, I'm a clue." Over the next hour, what the police basically did was show each person the picture of the judge, and then ask if they'd seen him last night. All of them that Turner and Fenwick talked to were solemnly quiet. Each looked at the picture, and some looked thoughtful before answering. They all gave the same answer. None had seen the judge. Only a few said they remembered Billy's announcement about the judge being in the bar. On such a busy night, it was possible for a dancer to make over $100 during each set for only a few minutes of bumping and grinding. Their thoughts were concentrated on that. The few who remembered what he said hadn't seen the judge and didn't know what he looked like anyway. Turner and Fenwick took down all their names and asked Sickles for the names and addresses of those whom they had been unable to interview. They got done just after 9. A brief walk in the cold got them to their car. "Must be at least 20 below zero," Turner said. "Know what really fries my socks about this weather?" Fenwick asked as he started the car. "Long winter underwear sticking to your crotch?" "Hey, you're good." "You told me that earlier." "Sounds like me. I mean, in addition to that." "I'm paralyzed with anticipation. When I woke up this morning, I said to myself, I hope Buck tells me more about this long winter underwear." "Jealous?" "Only in my wildest nightmares." Fenwick said, "It's 2 more things, really. 3. Get on with it. First, the lack of heat in these cars. Second, the glee in the weather forecasters' voices as they predict new record lows. But the worst is when they tell us to bundle up, as if the television and radio forecasters have become our mothers. They just get done telling us it's 1,000,000 degrees below zero, and then they tell us to bundle up. How stupid do they think we are? How many times have we been faced with the stupidest criminals in the country, and the next day they do something even dumber? And then we get Carruthers. See, Turner said, they're performing a valuable service. We done for the day. Just the commander and one other brass who happen to want to stick their nose in this. A stack of reports to get started. Plans for tomorrow. Well, shit. That's nothing. We should eat first. They stopped at Ed DeBivic's on Ontario Street for a burger. Turner hated the place. He found the 50s sassy waitress shtick tiring. Buck loved it. He found flirting with the waitress enjoyable. Turner figured it was a heterosexual thing. He was willing to indulge his partner once in a while, since the food was good. They managed to see the last 20 seconds of one football game. The nothing they had left to do took them well over 2 hours. Reporting to everyone and beginning reports got them no closer to a killer. But, tired as they were, they made sure that what they wrote and what they said was as accurate as possible. You didn't want to mess up your case with any kind of slip-up. No one wanted their face plastered on national television for screwing up on an investigation. Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold: to offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides, and in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.